So building superior relationships, which is our next session, this has to do with men and women. What we've done is we've studied the interactions and the chemistry between men and women for a long time, and so we have some ideas that you might be able to use. We say there are 6 keys to successful, happy relationships. Now, there may be many more keys, but this is about 98, 99% of it. Number 1 is that similarities attract. And you've heard this before, similarities attract. And what does this mean? It means because of the law of attraction, we're attracted to people who are similar to ourselves in certain specific ways. And the similarities attract in almost all areas, but especially in the area of values. Remember I said that Ayn Rand wrote that all love is a response to values. We love another person because they represent the values that we most treasure, that we consider to be the most important. I shouldn't say this, I say this out of school, but sometimes my children have asked me, why did you marry Barbara? And I always have one answer. And I say, I married her because of her character. Not that she wasn't a beautiful, attractive, intelligent, wonderful woman, but when I married, because those things will go. A lot of things will go or will change, but I married her because of her character. And I still remember the moment I fell in love with her is when I saw that she had such wonderful character. And that was the most important thing of all. So that's what we're attracted to with another person. We're attracted to values that they seem to espouse. The great disappointment is when they seem to espouse a value and we find out later that they don't actually share that value. That's a real relationship killer. So we have similarities, especially in areas of values, children, attitudes toward children, having children, raising children, and so on. Money is important. Most marriages or relationships break down because of arguments over money. It's the number 1 killer. Sex, attitudes towards sex. And here's another big discovery, leisure time. Is you'll find that people who are ideally compatible really enjoy doing the same things in their leisure time. I've had friends who've gotten married and she liked to go dancing and he liked to do stamp collecting. And so she'd go out dancing and she'd go out partying and he'd be working at home on his stamp collection. How long do you think the marriage lasted? Not very long. And unfortunately, children come into a marriage and it's even worse. So you'll find that people who get married like to ski together, they like to go out to dinner together. You'll find that couples who are really compatible in 80% of times will order the same dishes. Ask yourself, and you look at this in terms of values, what are your values? That's the core of your personality. How do you feel about children? Many women make the mistake of marrying a man, he says he doesn't want to have any children. Well, most women want to have children. It's a biological drive. And they think, well, he'll change. And they get married and they get stuck into a relationship that lasts for years. And he wasn't kidding. He doesn't want any children. And she does. And sometimes a woman feels that she's wasted her whole reproductive life in a situation where she thought he would change, and she thought he would change a basic value. So one of the first things you do is do an interview. Take them to a zoo, see how they treat the other kids. Anyway, money, sex, leisure time. When you meet the person who is right for you, there will be a chemistry. Khalil Gibran said, there will be a moment of the meeting of the minds, a chemical moment at the first instant of meeting between a man and a woman, or it will never happen. And that's in his book, Prophet, when they ask him, talk to us of love. And he said, this first answer is, there will be a meeting at the first instant of glance, or it will never happen. And it's quite amazing. People their eyes will meet across a crowded room, and they'll be married for the rest of their lives. They may not get married that evening, but they will start to talk to each other and go out with each other and be together forever. And if it's not there, it very seldom comes later. So there's always almost an instant chemistry, and it's very hard to force. That's one thing that you cannot force, is the chemistry in a relationship. It feels right because you will be in accord on almost all the critical areas of life. Napoleon Hill said, subconscious minds communicate with other subconscious minds. So you'll meet a person and know nothing about them, but your subconscious minds, your basic values, your core things that you consider important will communicate in that instant. And only later will you find, surprise, surprise, this person likes this, and this person believes in that, and this person has the same background, and so on. You never knew any of that. It was just the eyes meeting. And it was the subconscious connecting at 30,000 times the speed of the conscious mind. So, this often happens. Sometimes you meet a person, you had an experience, you meet a person, and you even see them, and you just like them. Male or female, you just like them immediately. You have an immediate rapport with that person. And sometimes you meet a person, or you see a person, and you immediately dislike them. And later on, you'll find out that that instant feeling was well justified. The person that you instantly liked is a really likable person. The person that you instantly had an aversion to is not a good person. You'll have it instantly, almost so fast that you cannot even process it with the conscious mind. Rule is always listen to that gut feeling. Always listen to that intuitive feel that you have for other people. If you ever go against that intuitive feel, then it can be very, very painful and costly, as everybody who's been in business knows. Okay, opposites attract. This is the second principle of relationships, but only in one area, temperament. Nature demands balance. So if there's an outgoing person, they are balanced with an ingoing person. And the way that you can determine this is what is called the talk test. The talk test is everybody likes to talk and everybody likes to listen. So each person has a certain need to talk. This is person 1 and this is person 2. And so they have a certain need to talk and a certain need to listen. And there's about 10 to 15% of comfortable silences when you're together. Now, an incompatibility occurs when somebody only likes to talk 15% and the other person only likes to talk 15%. So there's huge periods of what are called uncomfortable silences. And this can occur later in a relationship. Have you ever been in a restaurant and seen two people eating and they don't talk? Or you've been driving and there's two people sitting in a car looking straight ahead and they don't talk? This is a sign of incompatibility. Or the worst is when they fight for airtime. It's both people like to talk 80% of the time. Two professional speakers get together and you just can't shut them up. Finishing each other's sentence and tripping each other's words, they don't listen, they cannot talk. So a good relationship is the talk test. Is an easy ebb and flow. It goes back and forth, and you can spend hours in an easy ebb and flow of conversation, subject after subject, with about 10 to 15% of comfortable silences. They're just comfortable. Number 3 is commitment. In a good relationship, there's a total commitment. There's a thing in relationships called a trading relationship, where people only commit part way. I'll go 50% of the way, you go 50% of the way. The key to a successful relationship is that you go 100%, and both of you go 100%. The overlap is 100%. Because if both of you go 50%, then all that has to happen is a disagreement, and it opens up. It's like a bridge that opens up in the middle, and the relationship can start to collapse. But if you both go 100%, then you can have all kinds of flexibility in the span, if you like, and the relationship is still solid. So total commitment is absolutely important. And that's why if you're not 100% committed to a relationship, then it's not the right thing for you. Fourth is similar self-concepts attract and are most compatible. What does that mean? It means that people will generally be compatible with people who are about as happy as they are. Now it's interesting because you sometimes find miserable couples. Neither one, they're both negative. They both complain all the time, but they're quite compatible because they sit there and they complain and grouse and whine and moan and bitch and that's just their lifestyle. And they watch television, they complain about who's on television and complain about the neighbors. So some people can be happy together even though they're mutually negative. But you will always be most compatible with a person who's about as happy as you are. If you ever try to get involved with a person who's not as happy as you, you're in for a lot of conflict and a lot of problems. Now here's a basic rule, and I've said this before, and the basic rule is people don't change. People don't change their basic self-concepts after they become adults. Now, they may change if there is a significant emotional event. In other words, a miraculous event. Moses does come down from Mount Sinai, and lightning strikes, and the clouds part, and the human being changes, but not bloody likely. So therefore, just accept that if a person is not happy, you're not going to make them happy. The rule is that if a happy person marries an unhappy person, the unhappy person will drag the happy person down. The happy person will not bring the unhappy person up. It just ain't going to happen. And many people think, well, I'm happy, so I'll take this person who's attractive and has a lot of good qualities, and I'll make them happy like me. It just doesn't happen. That person is miserable. It's almost like they're a sea anchor. They will drown the swimmer. No matter how strong the swimmer is, that anchor will eventually pull them under. And eventually they'll have to walk away. Do you remember that line from the movie Network, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore? About 60-70% of divorces in America are initiated by women because they're mad as hell and they're not going to take it anymore. They're just not going to spend the rest of their life in an unhappy relationship, and they just walk. And he's sitting there watching television. He has no idea what's going on. But they make a decision. He is not going to change. He's quite content being the person that he is, and I'm out of here. And in retrospect, they turn back and say it was the best decision they ever made. It takes a lot of courage to do it. The happiness scale, how happy are you on a scale of 1 to 10? How happy are you on a scale of 1 to 10? and then how happy is the other person. And just make sure that if you're an 8 in terms of general happiness, make sure that that person's a happy person too. And make sure they're an 8 as well. If you're a 5 or a 10, make sure that they're the same level, because if they're not, you'll have a continuous conflict. Number 5 is the 5th characteristic is liking. And liking is actually more important than being in love, liking and respect, because being in love can come and go. You can have arguments, you can have fights, you can be really furiously angry and so on. So love can come and go, but as long as the liking and respect is there, the love will come back. What is the opposite of love? What is the opposite of love? Yes, the opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference. It's just not caring. This is when it's over. I mean, you can hate a person temporarily, because the very fact that you can hate a person means that you feel very strong emotions toward that person. But indifference is where the flame has gone out. The fire is cold, it's gone, you just don't care. And when you reach indifference, it's virtually impossible to save a relationship. When you reach indifference, basically you're just sharing the same roof, sharing the same living quarters. And it's very hard to get to get the fire going again. It's almost impossible. So liking and respect, these two feelings are more important than being in love, because as long as you like and respect the other person, then you can patch it up. Now, we have a little problem with Maria and Arnold in California this week, and when Maria found out what Maria found out, this liking and respect went completely. It's gone. You could see it's absolutely crystal clear. I mean, it's over, baby. There's no way that we can repair this. Apparently, did you read the latest news? The children were born within a very few days of each other, and the person working for them was pregnant at the same time, and working in the house at the same time Maria was pregnant. And here's Arnold, we're back and forth. I wonder what's going through Arnold's mind. Well, I'll tell you, he's got a lot to answer for. But apparently he's worth a lot of money, so Maria's going to be set up quite nicely. In California, you know, we have community property law. That means that everything is divided 50-50 upon divorce. So you say, well, why is it that people go to court and have these fights in court? Well, you go to court to fight over his 50%, see how much the woman can get of that. Because her 50% is locked in. Now, how much of his can we get? And that's what virtually all the all the divorce fights are over, is how much of his you can get. Not only his now, but his in the future. So anyway, Arnold's going to end up paying big time for his indiscretion. Isn't that a good word? His indiscretion. The best friend test is that you're ideally suited to your mate when your mate will be your best friend. They'll be your best friend in the world. There's no person that you would rather spend time with. There's no person that you'd rather go on vacations with, go out for dinner with. Is that everybody else in your life is really peripheral. Your mate is your best friend. And so you always ask, who's your best friend in the world? Your mate is your best friend. If you have other best friends, I've got best buddies and best girlfriends, and we go on vacations. I know people who go on vacations with their girlfriends, women who go on vacations with their girlfriend, men who go on vacations with their men friends. They don't want to go on vacations with their wife. They just don't like them that much. They love them, you know, but they don't like them that much. So best friend is a really, really important thing. What we find is when you meet the right person for you, you know what, you turn around and say, I just met my best friend. I just met my best friend. That's the person for me. And that person is there, by the way. That person is out there.